If you're dating after 40 and you keep attracting Mr. Unavailable on repeat, and what you really want is lasting love with Mr. Right, you're in the right place. This episode is for you if you are ready to give up on dating altogether. Please listen to this first. Okay, let's get started. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about wanting to give up on dating in your 40s. And I want you to listen to this first before you totally throw everything out the window, because I know exactly how you feel and how that feels to want to quit. I'm going to tell you a story about one of my dates that kind of put me over the edge and made me think, okay, I'm never going to date again. And I'm just going to be home alone forever and ever. I want to talk about how to regulate your emotions when dating feels really overwhelming and when you feel like giving up and you just hit a roadblock where you're dating and it seems like you're meeting the same guy over and over again in a different body, even though you've made all these changes, you've been doing your journaling and self-reflection and all of those things, and it doesn't seem to change or move the needle for you. Or you feel like when you go on the dating apps that there's no one worth talking to or no one that you're interested in will talk to you. And you just think, nobody wants to date. This is impossible. There's lots of fake accounts. There's lots of married men. What's even the point of dating? And you just want to give up. If you're at that point, stay with me, it's actually a great place to be because you start to get intentional and what I call the enough is enough moment, where you say to yourself, that's it. This is not going to happen anymore. And I'm going to find the love I'm looking for. And you get focused, you get heart centered, and you really start to think it's do or die. I'm going to do this now, and this is going to work. Instead of maybe before you were waffling a little bit, or you would commit for a certain amount of time on the dating apps, then you'd say, oh, I'm too busy, or I don't feel like doing this right now, or life gets busy, and then it would go to the back burner. I've had a lot of clients say to me, well, when this work project is done, or after I move and get settled, then I'm going to start dating. Or next year when I feel better about myself, or after I go through this weight loss, or whatever it is that you feel you want to do before you date. That might be the position that you've been in, but I'm talking about the point where you say, this is not going to work. Maybe nobody is out there for me. Maybe there's no Mr. Right out there for me. And when you get to that space, I'm going to walk you through how to get through that low point, if you will. But then, as I said, it's a great turning point, because that's where I had my turning point, my enough is enough moment, where I said, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I deserve love. I deserve the kind of love that I desire, the kind of love that feels like home. And I could just see it and almost taste it. It's like, this is what I deserve. And from that point forward, everything changed for me. And I was able to meet my husband in my 40s. And so I know what power this kind of point of no return or giving up point can come to, because it's that moment where it's like, this is it. I'm going to do this and it's going to work. That's why I was saying, if you're ready to give up dating in your 40s, just listen to this podcast first. And I hope that I can help you. And of course, if you want to take a break from dating, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking to you if you feel like, I want to date, there is a desire there, I do want to meet someone, but this is just not working. There's no point. I want to talk to you if you're feeling like that. Okay, so let me tell you the story of when I swore off dating for life after my date took me to his doctor on our first date. So let me back up a little bit. I was online and I was on the dating apps, and this happened to be Plenty of Fish. And I met someone who I thought was quirky and interesting. And at the time I thought, well, this, he's a little bit odd, but he seems very interesting and different, and he's not like a lot of the other guys I've talked to, so I really want to expand my horizons and try something out, and I really liked his sense of humor. We talked for hours on the phone, and at the time wouldn't have admitted it, but there was a lot of red flags where I thought, well, I don't know, is he quirky or is he unstable? Is he saying that because it's a joke, or is that really how he feels? And it was like, I don't know. And so I thought, well, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And so we decided to meet up, and we were going to meet at the subway station. And We met there and he walks up to me. And first of all, him in real life is about 10 years older than his picture. So right away, I was very disappointed and a little bit angry and thinking, this is really not the best way to start off. Immediately he's already deceived me in a sense, or he thinks that's how he looks still 10 years later. Anyway, so I'm like already put off and a little bit annoyed, more than a little annoyed. He walks up and he's got this girl beside him. And I kid you not, when he says, "Nice to meet you, Eleanor. This is so and so." And I met her on the subway and I shook her hand and I'm thinking, wow, this is really, really weird. Like this is getting into like very bizarre territory. She puts out her hand and says, "Nice to meet you." And he says, "This is my future girlfriend," or I don't know how he said it. It was something like, "This is my soon to be girlfriend, Eleanor." And I was like, oh my God, my mouth just dropped open. And I thought, okay, all of these things that I thought he was joking about or I thought was quirky was just literally very unstable. And so now my heart's starting to beat a little faster. I'm a little worried. I'm looking around. Let's stay in a very public place. And we talked with this random girl for a minute. And then she's like, "Well, enjoy your date and enjoy your soon to be relationship," or something ridiculous like that. And she walked away. And then he said, "Okay, do you want to go? We're going to go to this restaurant. But first, I have to make a quick stop." In my mind, the wheels are turning, and I'm thinking, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? I really need to make an excuse. And I'm just trying to formulate something in my mind, and I'm not able to think on my feet that fast because I'm just in total shock as to what has already transpired. We head across the street to this doctor's office, and I'm like, wow, now this is just really gone beyond. We go into the waiting room and we sit down and he's talking. And the more he talks, the more I'm like, this guy is really, really unstable. And he's bordering on, obviously, he's here to get medication. And he puts down his backpack and he gives it to me. And he says, "I'm going to go in now. Watch this and don't leave. Whatever you do, watch my bag. Don't leave my bag here." Everybody is kind of looking in the waiting room. There's about 3 or 4 people, and I remember making direct eye contact with this woman across from me. We made this sort of silent agreement, looking at each other like we knew what was what. And the guy went into the doctor's office, and as soon as he closed the door, I looked at her and she did a little nod, and I got up and I ran. I ran out of that doctor's office. I ran down the stairs. I ran across the street, jumped on the subway, and went in the wrong direction, like 5 stops to get my breathing and my heart rate back to normal, and called my aunt and said, "This is where I am," and all this stuff, because he had already started calling me and leaving messages, long messages, saying how disappointed he was that I had left him there. And I was just terrified. It had gone from, this is a bit weird and a bizarre situation, to feeling like a terrifying kind of situation. Thankfully, he never bothered me again. He left about 5 messages just going on and on about his situation and not to worry, blah, blah, blah. And I just obviously deleted all of them. And then I went onto the dating app and I deleted my entire account. And I was like, I'm never dating again. That's it. That is the end of my online dating for life. I don't care what happens from now on. I don't even care if I'm single for the rest of my life. And I made that decision. So if you've been in that place, the reason I'm telling that story is there are obviously times where you're pushed over the edge, where you say, this is ridiculous. There is no hope. There are no normal people online on the dating apps. There is nobody that I can meet who's actually going to be normal and who's going to want a loving relationship, let alone being emotionally available. What I want to say to you is I went home and I was devastated, and I cried, and I talked to my aunt again, and she said, "Oh my God, that's so terrifying, and I'm so sorry you went through that." And she really validated my experience. So the first thing I would say is just really find someone that you can talk to, and they will validate you and give you that comfort that you need to talk about how awful it is and how it really is hard to date online. It's really hard to meet someone, especially after 40. And I'm 100% acknowledging that. I've never meant to say that it's not hard. I'm just here to help you to navigate through all of that, to go through those ups and downs and really come out the other side so that you can meet someone. But we have to get to that space where we validate ourselves in order to regulate your emotions when dating feels impossible, to get someone to really help you through it. A couple of caveats: do not talk to people who are not single, or they've been married for 45 years and they have no clue what you're talking about. You've got to find somebody. If you don't know another single person, I would recommend, finding an online group or something that is accessible to you where you can talk to people and they know what you're talking about. Okay. So get really validated. You don't want to hear someone's well meaning advice that doesn't make any sense and doesn't resonate and is not relevant for this day and age. Once you've done that, the next thing, I always love to go to journaling. And so I dive into the journaling. And here's where I want you to be extremely honest. You have to get out your real emotions. It's about being authentic. It's about being real with yourself and not censoring anything. Saying, this sucks. I hate this. There's nobody out there. No one's ever going to love me. I'm never going to get through this. And just talk in those terms that everyone says you shouldn't. Like, don't say never, and it's not always. Well, when you're working through your emotions, you need to use that really strong, dramatic language because that's what your nervous system is saying, and that's what your heart is saying. Your heart is grieving. The heart is very dramatic. You need to let your heart be dramatic. Just let it all out. You can stomp around your living room, write out a 10-page complaint and rage through the pages. This is never going to work. It's so unfair. I can't stand this. Everybody's stupid. I hate everyone online. This is never going to happen. Go through that until all that emotions are spent, that you are emptied of that feeling of this is never going to work and I'm going to give up and I'm going to be 100 years old and I'm going to still be by myself and no one's ever going to love me. And just do all of that and make sure you don't hold back. It is the most freeing, most wonderful feeling. You can have a stormy cry. You can rage and cry and blow your nose and jump around. And then once that settles in, give yourself some care. Say, thank you so much you can thank yourself. Thank you so much for being present. I'm so glad that we were present with ourselves and talking to that part of yourself that let you do that and thanking it and saying, I'm so grateful for this experience of being able to get it all out, to voice it, to express that extreme frustration, the feeling of hopelessness. You need to express it. You need to exit that from the body. You can also do what I've talked about in many episodes is the tapping. And the way I do it is, if you're watching the video, you can see I'll use my chin and you can do your storming and crying and everything while tapping, because that will actually help the emotions come up even more easily and the energy to release from the body and to expel all of that really heavy, heavy stuff. That's what I did. It was such a dramatic shift after that because I felt calm. I had everything out. I had gotten the support I needed from my aunt. And then I was able to be like, okay, well, what do I want? You can give yourself a couple of days. You can say, I'm going to give myself the space of 2 days or something to let the dust settle, let myself get grounded again, and be open and don't have any agenda, just allowing yourself that day or two to recalibrate. And then when you feel settled, then you can go back to your journal and start asking your heart. You can put your hand on your heart. That's a beautiful way to start. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths and then say, okay, what does my heart want? What do I desire? And start journaling from that space. There's nothing that you need to do. There's no right or wrong. There's no, I should get back to dating because, I have to do that. Either way, it doesn't matter if you feel like I don't want to date anymore for a while. If that's your genuine feeling in your heart and it's not from fear and not from just needing to take a little bit of space or a break and you feel like I'm going to try something else, then that's totally fine. You need to give yourself the space. So what I did was I journaled it out. I said, I really want to find a relationship. That's my true desire. With all that space and all of that processing and the expelling my emotions and expressing myself to someone else and having them support me, what came out of that, what rose as a whisper from my intuition, from my heart, was that I do truly desire to find a relationship. From that space, I said to myself, okay, how can I do this differently? And I tuned into my body and was asking my intuition, what are some ways that I can show up that is going to protect me from situations like that? That is going to alert me to that before I get involved in unavailable guys or unstable guys or someone who's not right for me. What are the things that I can do? That's really where my framework emerged of awareness, acceptance, and connection. So going through those three pillars is always helpful. First of all, the awareness is the awareness of myself, the awareness of the fact that I had those red flags, that I did feel uncomfortable throughout our phone conversation before I met him, that I did have those bells and whistles kind of going off like, I don't know if this is really the right thing for me. And knowing that I really wanted him to be someone that I could connect to, I really wanted him to be a good match for me, and he wasn't. And I knew that beforehand, and I pushed through. Having that awareness, I was able to go into that and say, what can I do differently next time? And I would say that what I learned from that was to cut down on the conversations over the phone, have a very short conversation over the phone, in talking, okay, this person sounds normal, everything's okay. Now let's meet right away. That would have cut out forming that kind of bond with him and then having all these expectations around it and ignoring all these red flags. It's better to actually see the person in real life and to get a sense of that. So I would have, if I had done it differently, I would have had like a 15-minute phone conversation with him and maybe thought, well, I don't know, we're going to meet for coffee, but this may or may not be okay. And then meet him for coffee. Next time, if someone walks up to me and they don't look like their picture and they are with someone they met randomly on the subway, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, I'm just going to call this a day and I don't think this is going to work out, but thank you so much for meeting up with me and I'm going to go on with my day. And having those really strong boundaries. And I do understand that as a people pleaser myself, it is very difficult to do that, but it saves you what I went through. It saves you having to escape from the doctor's office and going into all that drama. That was the awareness I had, that I tended to create a whole entire fantasy around someone by having a long phone conversation with them and then ignoring the red flags and not meeting the person right away and not having a very strong a hard no right away, like this is not going to work. I'm not going to continue with the date. Having better boundaries around that. So that's my awareness. And then accepting. You have to move into acceptance. It's like, I accept myself. I understand that I have trouble speaking up and that I'm a people pleaser and that I was caught like sort of a deer in headlights in that situation. And that's perfectly acceptable. And I know that about myself and that's okay. And I'm working on that. And then leading into the connection, connecting more deeply to myself, being more grounded, more in my heart space and more connected to my intuition so that I could act in the moment in an empowered way. And you go back and forth between those pillars because even if I didn't say that something like that happened again in a different scenario, but a similar scenario, it's okay. So moving into the acceptance again, it's okay. I'm learning each time. And it's okay, I'm getting better at this every time I do this. The point that I want you to hear, and I hope that you take away from this episode, that if you are ready to give up on dating altogether in your 40s, please go through this process first with the expressing yourself, getting the support that you need from someone else, validating your experience, really letting go of all those crazy emotions, uncensored, then doing a deep dive into yourself to say, okay, what do I want? After giving yourself a couple of days to recalibrate And if you still come to the answer of like, I just don't really want to date right now, that's perfectly fine. You can be doing other things. You can be connecting into yourself. You can be learning new things, taking a class, going to dance lessons, whatever it is. It is absolutely fine to move away from the dating if you want, if that's still true. For me personally, I really wanted to find love. I wanted to find a relationship, and it made me more committed than ever. It was like, this is it. I'm doing this. I'm not letting these experiences stop me from having the love I desire, and I'm going to continue on this journey because this is something I really want. It's hard to get to that space before you've processed your emotions, released a lot of that stuff, and before you've actually given yourself the space to know what you truly want. That's really the steps I would love for you to go through if you feel like you're ready to give up on dating. I hope this has been helpful, and I really feel you. I've been there. I understand what you're going through, and there is a way through. There is a way to become stronger, more clear, more grounded, and even find the joy in dating. So if you're with me on that, then continue with the journey throughout season 4 as we're really diving into a lot of the emotional healing around dating after 40 and how to manage and navigate those emotions and those disappointments as they come up. So please join me again, and remember, love is closer than you think.